No one anticipated it. Usually tactful in her speech, Sophie Cunningham came up with a message so unvarnished that it left fans speechless. Lexie Hull's own message came in like an emotional aftershock just behind her. It's vulnerable, honest, and hard to ignore. However, this went beyond a teammate's injury. It was a personal matter. Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and Lexie Hull had been the Indiana Fever's unstoppable combination for months. A connection that seemed impervious to the demanding environment of professional basketball. However, here they were, exposing a turn of events that none could have predicted. Even the most seasoned fans were uneasy about this turn. 4 months, July 17, 2025, had been marked on calendars. The WNBA All-Star Weekend wasn't the only event held in Indianapolis. It was almost ready to name its own star. The name Caitlin Clark was all over the place. On billboards, in storefront windows, and on banners. All of the hotels were fully booked. For weeks, every ticket had been sold out. It was meant to be the weekend that cemented Clark's reputation. Rather, the air's energy changed, initially almost imperceptibly. Something like the quiet before a storm. Long before she signed her first professional contract, Clark's legend was already etched in big strokes. In Iowa, she did more than just shatter records. She left a legacy of sellout arenas, double-doubles, and viral highlights that converted casual spectators into ardent admirers. She didn't transition when she joined the WNBA. I'm sorry, a takeover occurred. She wasn't only someone to watch by her sophomore year. Everyone's attention was on her. The basketball world went wild when the Eastwise announced her WNBA Player of the Year in early July. She had defeated league heavyweights like. 4 years, the names of 2 women, Breanna Stewart and Aya Wilson, had been associated with power. It wasn't an honor for someone who was only 23 years old. The future had already arrived, as evidenced by the shot across the bow. Her coronation was scheduled for Indianapolis All-Star Weekend. She was the All-Star Game captain, the clear favorite to win the three-point competition, and the focal point of a city that was about to burst into joy. However, the script was torn to pieces in an instant. The event's public face, Clark, was out. The absence of any competition, game, or on-court appearance, just silence, observes the game on a larger scale, clearly with the platform she developed for herself and then transferred to the game. It's enormous, I guess. As a point guard and someone who makes a lot of passes that result in shots, I believe that if I miss, she will undoubtedly say, "You got the next one." I feel like I can rely on her to keep me feeling confident and favorable. Please subscribe if you find this entertaining. Not only did the announcement land, it exploded. Mid-scroll, social media timelines froze. Group talks erupted. Journalists rushed to get statements. What could go wrong for its star before the start of one of the league's most anticipated weekends? What had transpired between the All-Star Spotlight and the ESP stage? The initial murmurs indicated returning to a heated game against the Connecticut Sun a few days prior. Spectators noticed a little jerk in her gait, a brief scowl as she adjusted her balance. Initially, it appeared to be simply exhaustion, but a few moments later, she was gripping her side. She slowed her stride and staggered to the bench, her eyes contracting in misery. The crowd's exhilaration gave way to concern. The facts came to light in a matter of hours. She had been quietly treating a groin injury, but Clark had made it worse. Weeks. Stephanie White, the head coach, promised everyone that she would be thoroughly watched and assessed. The truth, however, was more brutal behind the scenes. The doctor gave clear guidance. Relax or run the risk of something far worse. Therefore, Caitlin Clark, the lifeblood of All-Star Weekend, had to take a complete step back a few days after winning Player of the Year. No three-point competition, no All-Star game, and no memorable moment in front of her home audience. On July 17th, the announcement hit Indianapolis like a ton of bricks. Clark's message was succinct but profound. A love emoji, a few well-chosen words, and the tacit acknowledgement that one's health has to come first. You read the post twice in the hopes that the second pass would lessen the impact. Didn't. Although many fans understood the maturity behind the choice, others were devastated. This has nothing to do with making headlines. It was a matter of safeguarding a young career. With the same competitive fire she always possessed, Clark assured everyone that she would still be there, cheering from the seats rather than on the floor. Nevertheless, her absence created a gap, and the league needed to take immediate action. It was an internal replacement. Her Fever colleague, Lexie Hull, was called up to enter the competition. It was a wonderful fit on paper. In the background, Hull had been developing one of her finest seasons, having one of the highest three-point shooting percentages in the league and making three-pointers with merciless efficiency. Coaches were confident in her abilities. The public was unaware, however, that Hull would be entering this moment with her own sadness. "What is the name of your dog?" "Libby is my name." Lai takes a seat. "Libby. Good morning. Adorable. Oh, I see. For today's game. I'm so happy." A few days before to the news, Hull's life changed in a way that statistics could never quantify. Maggie, her cherished dog and devoted friend for 14 years, died. To her, it was more than a pet. Through all the chapters, Maggie had been there. Long road journeys, exhausting college seasons, peaceful nights in strange towns, and high school titles. Hull shared the news on social media with the simple statement, "The sweetest Mags. Home won't be the same without you." The response was overwhelming, was immediate. Two responses stood out among the thousands of messages provided by admirers. Caitlin Clark's one, "I adore you," and from Sophie Cunningham, another, "No, I'm very sorry, Lex." These brief internet interactions exposed something much more human in a league characterized by competition. A network of assistants that extended past the game's clock. This wasn't merely a list of players for the Fever. Experts. A sisterhood existed. They rejoiced in each other's victories. Yes, but more significantly, they came together during the darkest moments. The world will soon realize that these women were united by more than just their shared triumphs as Hull dressed for the match. Her grief still raw, and Clark got ready to cheer from the sidelines rather than lead the court. It was loyalty that was impervious to everything. Caitlin Clark has had Sophie Cunningham as her staunchest supporter and advocate. Within the previous couple weeks, she is, of course, a teammate. She also plays for the Fever. She is the only WNBA athlete I have ever seen to publicly state this openly and without embarrassment. The reason we have been discussing the WNBA is because of Caitlin Clark. It's true whether you like it or not. Perhaps Sophie Cunningham or Caitlin Clark should do the next American Eagle campaign. Actually, I don't think Caitlin Clark inevitably desires the title that everyone has been bestowing upon her. She just wants to be valued, I believe. Additionally, Sophie Cunningham seems like a genuine person and a wonderful friend. I believe that there are many people, particularly women, who will kind of stab you in the back, especially when it comes to female athletes and elite-level athletes. This is especially true in team sports. Well, there's a lot of anger and jealousy, especially when you're doing well. Additionally, there are individuals such as Sunny, host of The View, who emphasize that. People with white privilege, tall privilege, gorgeous privilege, and heterosexual privilege are like Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark has tall privilege, she said literally. Crazy. However, Sophie simply seems like such a girl's girl, and there is a lot of jealousy there. There was a word for that: loyalty. Cunningham, Sophie. Most fans know her for her toughness, defense, and ability to get under the skin of her opponents. Sophie's. Her steadfast dedication to her people was her true characteristic. Not a referee, coach, or trainer showed up first when Caitlin Clark was brutally hit earlier in the season. Sophie rushed in to put herself between Clark and the mayhem. Fans recognized it for what it was, even if the league penalized her for it. Evidence that Sophie fought for reasons other than the scoreboard. She changed from being a teammate to a protector after that. Furthermore, she did not confine that function to Clark. Sophie stepped in with quiet check-ins, shared jokes, and an unwavering big sister presence to ensure Lexie never felt alone in the days following Maggie's death. It wasn't a show. Only because the trio's bond was unmistakable did fans find out. They quickly earned the moniker Trees. What began as a light-hearted reference to a sugary treat developed into a badge of honor. 3 unique flavors that are all necessary and mix flawlessly. Clark. brought the focus, the hull, the fire, Cunningham, and the flash. Collectively, they served as the Indiana Fever's emotional core. A core that could not be broken by harm, loss, or failure. I mean, with respect. Trying to have an impact defensively is, one of the reasons I'm out there. I am also aware that I was undersized when I went against DB. I was attempting to take advantage of that by being as active as possible and obtaining as many balls as possible. Trace Lexie's foundation wasn't created overnight, Caitlin. It was forged in the moments when no one was looking, in the bruises, and in the grind. Sophie Cunningham was not seeking solace in Indiana. She arrived in pursuit of a challenge. She was familiar with every face in the locker room and every rhythm of the season after spending 6 seasons with the Phoenix Mercury. Her edge had been softened by routine. Furthermore, Sophie wasn't made to coast. She desired a sense of urgency once more. The kind that forces you to play every possession as if the season depended on it, dive for loose balls, and yell at opponents. Indiana provided just that. The Fever were youthful, unpolished, and still figuring themselves out. They also had no problem letting leaders take the lead. Sophie brought the same vigor that had characterized her since she dominated her way to 4 consecutive state titles at Rockbridge High in Missouri. She scored almost 20,000 points, made 129 straight starts, and played as if every rebound was her own at Misso. She was sharpened by the WNBA, not softened. And now that Caitlin Clark was becoming more well-known, Sophie's voice became the constant heartbeat amid the huddle of the Fever. However, the next piece of Trace Lexie's gave accuracy, a cooler, sharper weapon where Sophie brought fire. The 2022 arrival of Lexie Hall was surrounded by anticipation rather than fanfare. Only the 6th overall choice is capable of carrying that type. After graduating from Stanford, she had everything to prove to the league but nothing to prove to herself. She had mastered the skill of winning Pac-12 titles, Final Four runs, and the 2021 National Championship, which silenced all of her detractors over the course of 4 years. She spoke modestly. She didn't have to. Discipline was the cornerstone of her strategy. Long hours of extra shooting, researching the habits of opponents, and relentlessly moving to wear down defenders. When it counted in college, she delivered. In the championship game, they defeated Arizona with a double-double of 24 points against UCLA. When the stakes were high, make clutch threes. She was already proficient in Indiana by the time she got there. Pressure. Sophie and Lexie appeared to be complete opposites at first impression. One methodical, one fierce, one quiet, one shouting. On the court, however, they clicked right away. Both were powerful without seeking praise. Sophie and Lexie became Caitlin Clark's shield when she joined the Fever, garnering national attention at every turn. Lexie provides stability, while Sophie absorbs the blows. The chemistry wasn't staged. It included road trip conversations, post-practice drills, and little moments that would never qualify as highlights. They were viewed as stars by the people. However, they were something more uncommon, a safety net inside the locker room. Sophie and Lexie saved Clark from losing her cool when she found out she would not be able to attend the All-Star Weekend, a milestone she had been dreaming of for years. Without much fuss, Sophie arrived and began to lighten the mood. Even though she was still in mourning for Maggie, Lexie provided gentle words and the kind of composed demeanor that doesn't call for attention but makes a huge difference. Trace Lexie's became more than just a moniker because of this. It was a pledge. Nobody falls by themselves. They shared the heart-stopping lows of personal loss and the exhilarating highs of a comeback victory. It was evident to fans not only in their play but also in the way they interacted with one another during games. There was a look, a nod, and an unspoken trust. This was the real competitive game for the Fever. Edge, not merely skill or cunning, but a connection that endured whether or not the shot was made. And that level of dedication is uncommon and almost hard to match in a league where rosters and allegiances change. By the middle of the season, the Fever weren't barely scraping the injury that might have stopped them showed how solid their foundation had grown. The impact of Sophie Cunningham was pervasive, included into the team's everyday routine. She was the one who arrived early, ensured that rookies weren't sitting by themselves during lunch, and kept sessions productive without taking away their enjoyment. Her leadership was quiet. It hummed steadily, unflinchingly. Lexie Hull's metamorphosis reflected that gradual ascent. She had quietly emerged as one of the league's most accurate shooters, hitting threes at a pace that forced opposition coaches to make defensive adjustments. She had previously been regarded as a reliable role player. Her breakthrough, however, was mental rather than merely mechanical. She felt comfortable taking chances, following her gut, and playing without worrying about making a mistake in this locker room. It is impossible to fabricate or script that type of faith. It is composed of hundreds of small moments. The implicit approval of a teammate, the pats on the back following a miss, and the conviction that you belong. Consequently, Indiana was subtly evolving into a squad that didn't care about Clark's absence while the rest of the world was fixated on it. Rely on just one shining star. Treshes, which had begun as a light-hearted moniker, had evolved into a representation of something more profound. The cartoon prints of Clark, Cunningham, and Hull were not the only reason fans wore the shirts. They wore them because they supported the values that those three represented: joy, heart, and loyalty. It was evident in every high five, every smile on the sidelines, and every instance where one of them located the other on the court without having to look. The effect quickly spread. As the squad that prioritized players as individuals, younger players in the league started discussing the fever. In addition to the basketball potential, veterans searching for their next contract started to visit Indianapolis because of its culture. The Fever had found out how to have both in a league where connection is sometimes sacrificed for victory. It had nothing to do with well-planned social media posts or PR strategies. It was about the team spirit, a beating heart that became more audible with each match, a connection that rivals could sense but could never fully understand. And one question continued to reverberate among both fans and pundits as the season progressed. Did an unbreakable camaraderie that no stat sheet could quantify or pure talent drive Indiana's ascent?